Welcome to episode 06 of the New School HR podcast. This episode is titled Project 1. In this episode, I'll be talking about the different steps and measures you need to take when looking to plan out your first project within the new business. So sit back and enjoy the show. So you've been flying along in your probation period and everything's going really well, really cool. You're feeling really confident. You're starting to spread your wings a bit and understand the business. And then out of nowhere, bam, someone comes along and they're like, yo, here's your first project. And you're like, whoa, okay. And I don't care who you are. If you say that the first project you get, you're like, yes, I'm ready to go. If you've been in the business for maybe 6 months or more, fine, I'll give you that. But if you're in probation and someone says, yo, bam, here's your first project, then I don't think you're necessarily going to be in the best frame of mind at that particular point. Maybe you are, maybe you're better than I am, in which case, here's the microphone. But no, all jokes aside, I devised a little bit of a list of the kind of things that I do when I get my first project. Now, this doesn't always have to mean it's in probation. It could be when you actually join a different department. It could be when you're partnering with a different area of the business. So this is kind of flexible, but these are the steps that I'd look to do. So I'll just run through the list. So the first thing is, what is the project? What is the aim of the project? Has it already started? What tools are available? Who else is on the project? Mapping it out. Making sure everyone inputs. Project updates and when they're required. And then the pilot and the rollout. Now, that sounds like a lot of things. That's actually 9 different bullet points. But it's essential that you have some sort of structure and that you answer something, because, look, there's going to be times when you're going to have different things that come out of different people or different output from something that you do. So it's always going to be flex, it's always going to be adapt. But if you have a core basic principle that you follow, it should make the project run a bit more easier. So let's look into the first thing. So the first thing is, what is the project? So the first thing I would try to do is understand why we're doing it, if I've been asked to do it. And even if I've suggested it myself, I still want to understand why. So is it something that has been flagged from an employee survey, or is it something that you've seen as an opportunity? Is it something that your manager has always wanted to implement and it's always been on the agenda, but maybe it hasn't been the right time to do it? Or is it that actually you bring a different skill set to the team and the manager's decided that actually, you know what, now that we've got this skill set, maybe this is something we can focus on. So always understanding why, because when you go through your career, you'll see that you'll be joining teams at different points. And if they've got an awareness of giving you the project, that means that that's always been something that's been in the back pocket, or maybe it is something recent, who knows. But always try to understand why you're doing it. The next thing I would say is it something you've completed previously? And the reason why I say it is, if you've seen it before, and you might have even referenced it in your interview, that has happened, where I've seen people suggest something that they've done or a skill set that they have, and then bam, they've got the project for it. So again, kind of going back to the previous point, but that's something to draw on. And if you have, start digging it out. You know, if you haven't stolen the USB with all your previous work, then that's kind of stupid. But, you know, even if you haven't stolen something, you can always revert back to your experiences. It might just be a bit harder to actually capture it all down. But if you've got a template already there, why not bring that to the table? That's what I do. The other thing I'd say is, when you're being given a project, be honest about the gaps you have. So there's things that I get given, and you know what, I think 9 times out of 10 we get given projects that stretch us anyway, right? Or they're designed to give us new skills. But I think be honest right from the offset, because if it's quite an important task and you've been set to do it, and maybe you don't have a lot of support around you to complete the project, it's going to fail before you even begin if you've got loads of gaps. So I would always say, look, understand X, Y, Z, but ABC, probably not so much. So it's worth highlighting that there. The next thing I would do is ask, why me? Why have I been asked to do this? Because there might actually be someone in the team potentially better, or maybe someone that you can draw on or include in the project. And I think we can have an honest conversation about that. You know, I've seen it many times where people think because of my approach I'm better for something, but actually there's another person who's actually already done it and I know that, and maybe my line manager doesn't, or maybe there's a misinterpretation that there's something that I've said that they've latched onto, but I don't actually know, and I'm quite honest about that. And look, if they still give it to me, I have a go anyway. So it's not about trying to get out of it. It's just making sure that if this is a real priority, there are some things that you want your top strikers on, or top game players, if you like. You want them on it. And if you're not that, then share that, I think. And if the decision is still you, then boy, take those shots. You might hit a few wide, but there you go. The next thing I'd say, be realistic about the time scale. Yeah, just don't commit to like a week. I've actually seen people do it when they committed to getting a project done in 4 weeks or whatever. And we're sitting there 6 months later and we're still getting the same presentation. No knock at the previous stuff I covered in episode 5. But, let's be realistic about it. If this is a big scale project in a big company, let's not commit to a quarter. It might take you a quarter to even just collect the feedback. So just understand the magnitude and the size of the project and then think about what the timescales will be. When HR is doing something, sometimes it's a cultural or organizational change. So you can't just say that you're going to commit to doing that in about a day. So think about it, And then look at the resources required. So is there equipment required? Is there systems? Ask what's available to you, because you might not have a full awareness of it. And also suggest things as well. Now, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get what you suggest. Let's just be honest about it. But it's always worth a try to actually try and ask what you can take. Sometimes it can benefit the rest of the team if you can get a system put in, or you can get some sort of software or something like that. So always ask the question. And the last piece, budget people. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just see people take projects and not ask about a budget. And come on, HR people, we do need to know what the budget is, because there's going to be times you might need to buy materials, you might need to have leaflets made, various things. You need to know what your budget is. And that can sometimes determine straight from the offset, going back to the point about being realistic. If you've only got 25 quid, then you're getting A4 black and white printouts. So just try and work out with the manager what the project is. If it's a big thing that they want to invest in, then see if that's matched with the financial freedom or not that they're giving you. So that's the first part of me trying to understand what the project is. So the second thing is the aim of the project. What is the objective? What is it you're trying to achieve? And I always try and get this nailed on straight at the beginning. That should be in the scrap line. Reason being that when people go off on a tangent, or off down a different path, or down the yellow brick road to Narnia, I think that's 2 different things, whatever. Once people are doing that, you need to have something that draws them back, and the objective is what draws people back. So if someone's talking about sending a rocket up to Mars and all you're trying to do is actually get to the bottom of the ocean, then you need to be able to say to someone, the objective is we need to get to the bottom of the sea. We're not trying to support NASA up there. And that's literally sometimes how wide apart I've seen people when it comes to projects. So always try and get that objective nailed on. And yeah, that can change, but it shouldn't change too much. There should be an 80, well, maybe 60 to 70% similarity. I don't know. I have seen things change quite drastically, but for me, if it's not even 50% of what we agreed, why am I still doing it? So always work out what the objective is. Is the objective a short-term fix or a long-term fix, or gain, rather? So looking at what you've been asked to do, and you've got your budget and all that good stuff. If the project's a short-term solution, I would start challenging back around how much time is invested into this, or how much money or resource, whatever. Whereas if it's a long-term game, it's about mapping it out and the steps you're going to get there and how you implement things. So it's always worth knowing this, because this does change the scale of your projects, and it does change potentially the amount of touch points you have. I think if it's a long-term thing, you're more likely to have different support functions also supporting if it's something that needs to be implemented. If it's something that's short-term fix, that's just going to get something over the line, then you can probably do that within the HR team. Launch it, roll it out, and move on. The next thing is, who does it impact? So who is it aimed at? And I think that's also quite important because, again, we can lose track of who we're trying to do the project for. Now, projects are different, right? Some could be strategic stuff that is restructuring a whole team, or it could be a cost cutting exercise. That's one project. But another project could be employee engagement. It could be putting together a benefits scheme. It could be rolling out a referral for employment scheme. There's different things, right? So you need to understand who is actually getting the impact of this project, and that will determine how you focus these things. I think sometimes if you're aiming something at a higher level population, you actually might not be so sensitive. You might not need all the different sort of soft, touchy, feely stuff, because actually you can just go straight and whack it out. Comms, plan, communication, guide, bam, done. So it's always worth knowing who is impacted. The other thing is, does the output of your project actually replace something? Because if it does, you need to be fully aware of that. And it doesn't mean that it's something that's already there. So there's been times when I've picked up projects and I'm doing it, and then I find out, well, that's what we had in 2015. That's amazing, Dorothy. I didn't know that. So it's always worth trying to find out if something similar has happened in the past. And actually, I would then be looking at why it got changed or why it didn't work as well, and looking at how we find solutions around it. Because 9 times out of 10, if you put something in place that's already been there, people aren't going to buy into it. If they do, you get the cynicism, and as soon as it doesn't work, it's the, oh, well, we did try this in 2015, Bob. So always worth checking if something like it had happened already. And the other thing I'd say is check what's going on in your industry. So is it something that happens already in your industry, and how is it done? Because who better to ask sometimes than your new hires? So for example, in my previous role, our industry was incestuous, is that the word? And we stole from competitors all the time, but we also looked at people that were doing similar roles in different industries as well. And listening to them sometimes in interviews, your brain just used to run away with stuff. Like, I've sat there and heard things that I thought, yeah, that could really do well here. So if you've got someone that's already done something, so for example, I was looking at a bonus scheme in my previous workplace, and we was looking at how we could make it more competitive. Well, actually, we've got 5 senior managers from about 3 different competitors who all have that information, have achieved bonus or whatever. So let's, interact with them and find out what they do and how they do it and all that. So sometimes just having an awareness of what's going on in the industry can also support. You might be working with a charity or something as well that has that kind of information too. And if you're a trustee company or something like that, why not ask the question around, do they have any awareness of stuff? Because as an example, again, previous employer, the charity supported the whole industry, and they had an awareness of it and actually used to quite openly just compare stuff that we had without us even prompting it. So it's always worth just making notes when you hear this kind of stuff, not, stealing stuff or anything like that. But if someone tells you something, why not keep it in your back pocket? So, oops, I'm looking at eBay, looking at something that I want to get. Anyway, so the next thing to think about is, has the project already started? And that is quite key, because I've actually seen people run off with things and actually half of it's already been done. And I think, when you get a project, it doesn't stop the day job people, right? It doesn't stop your business stakeholders or whoever needing you. You're still part of the business. You're not just running off to do a project. So if you can find something that's going to save time, I definitely would take it. But it's up to you, obviously. So the first thing I look at, has it already began? Where is it? Where's the stuff, man? Show me where that thing is. I want to read it. I want to see what's there. I need that folder. Do you know what I mean? Hopefully it's not on a USB stick that was taken. Boom. But definitely start having a look at what's already been done. Find out who started it, and are they still in the business? So I've had it where myself, I've started stuff, not something that was to be shared with a wider business, but maybe with my region, and unbeknown to me, someone's already been tasked with doing it, and I've probably done 25% of it, maybe 50% of it. And look, you might change everything I did, but at least it's something, right? It might be a basis. There might be something you haven't considered. So if they're already there, go ask them, yo, bro, what happened? Let me get an understanding. And likewise, if somebody asks you, just share that shit, man. You don't have to be all sensitive about it. If it's helping the wider cause, it's going to make everyone's life a bit easier. So, I'm quite easygoing like that. If I've done some shit, you can have it. If you're able to run with it and do something better with it, or if you've got the time to finish it off, boy, go for it, man. Go and succeed. So, yeah, have a look for that kind of influence if someone's there. Find out why it was stopped if it was already there. So, for me, there's kind of four main reasons. Guys, if you have a fifth, sixth, and seventh, feel free to leave it in the comments. But the first thing I'd say is it because somebody exited the business? So, most of the times I see a project stops because the person who had it left and it was maybe their objective and it never got given to anyone else because people just maybe didn't take it on, or the manager hasn't got the team capacity to finish it off. So usually that. Next thing is budget. Did you run out of money? Was it something that was a system implementation or something like that and you couldn't do it anymore because actually, you know what, the business didn't make no money, so you can't have the 87 grand to go and put in a new system. These things do happen. The next thing is priority. So it might have been a key focus at one point, but actually had things moved on since then. So the longer term projects sometimes can actually become null and void. Not because you're useless or rubbish or whatever, but because actually the business actually moved on and progressed. And so therefore, maybe you don't need to do it anymore. Or it might even be that you got that new system for 87 grand and that's got an element of there that actually totally does everything you were going to implement anyway. So yeah, these things can happen. The next thing is maybe sometimes it's a change of business focus as well. So you could be doing an engagement project, which is, again, sort of similar to the last thing I said. You're focused on one thing, but the business evolves and therefore doesn't need it. Or it might be that, your project was around a sales piece and it could have been mainly to do with getting new business, but then we've changed it to retention. So that's a complete focus shift, which would change everything you're doing. So these things can happen. The other thing is, well, I've kind of said that already. I'm looking at my notes. What can be used from work already completed? We already said that, so tick in the box. The next thing I would say is ensure you check that no policy or legal changes are required on the back of your project. So I think sometimes we go off into the wind like, and we go do some shit, and it's amazing. But then we haven't seen if actually policy allows it. Like I have seen that where somebody's got really excited and the rest of us are sitting there like, yo, you can't legally do that shit, yeah? So always touch point with your policies, processes as well, business processes and any legal changes. So make sure that those who need to see it to verify that have seen it, not just the HR team, but process mappers rather, and things like that. They need to have an awareness of it so they can actually sense check everything you're doing. So that's point 3. So my favorite part when looking at a project, because I get really nerdy and excited and shit, what tools are available? What is at your disposal? Do you get some new toys? Probably not. But anyway, so what tools are available? So the first thing is looking at what actual templates and forms or workshops or anything like that you actually have within the business is available that can be used. So it's a bit similar to what I said in the last one, but that is still a tool, right? And again, you make a list of all the different tools that you have. The next thing is the systems in-house. And the reason I say this is I think we look at things just from a point of view of all the HR systems. But you need to get smart in that. You need to think about other systems within the business and the capabilities of what they have and what they're used for. So, customer, what they call CRM tools, CMR, CMS, whatever, those customer kind of tools. Really good for like keeping data and stuff like that. And I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes I use that to keep like different third-party details or information and stuff like that. And that's another tool that we don't really have in HR. So have an appreciation of what tools are actually in the business and what they're used for and seeing if they can actually help with the project that you're doing. It's not always just the HR systems there. Like I say, that customer tool was quite handy. I've used that for HR stuff. You might find all kinds of different things. Like even if you're trying to map something out, you know, you can still use maybe a tool that a driver use. Who knows? But just ask a question. IT have pretty good tools as well. I found that IT were using different project management tools to the HR system that we had. So always have an awareness of it. It's only going to make things easier for you. The next thing is looking at what third party support you have. So I know I said I keep their details, but sometimes, like for example, I've done stuff around drug testing, and I was there getting ready to write out the whole flow map and everything. And I thought to myself, let me just ask these guys, they're providing the service, let's see what they got. And they had the whole flow maps and everything already done. And actually, all I did was just take their materials, tick in the box, man. So check in with your third party. Even with the charity stuff that I did in a previous workplace, again, we were doing something around mental health awareness, and I was looking at how we can run a session and stuff like that, and looking at what information we can put. Turns out they do one for free, bruv. And it's part of being a trustee thing. They were going to do it for every single manager in the business, all like 300 of them. So, although that was somebody else who actually found it out, I think I just asked them. But that was really handy, right? We didn't have to actually create one. I've still got the book now. Handy shit. So it's worth expanding. Yeah, don't just take the piss with interacting with them and then going off and doing stuff. If they got stuff, why are you making your life hard? And again, the other thing is, I put it as a separate point, but it could be because I was thinking of the business as well. But looking at what marketing materials are there. So your company will have marketing stuff, and actually some of that stuff's really useful because it's got all the kind of right terminology and stuff that you need. And again, if it's third party, it will have the same thing as well. So it's always worth knowing that. I did touch on internal systems, but the next thing is internal data. So what kind of data do you need? You could need sales data, margin data, efficiency data, productivity. That's the same thing. But this kind of stuff might not be something that's accessible through the HR tool or performance management tool. It might be something that you have to delve deeper into, i.e. the reports that I referred to in one of the earlier podcasts. The second one, everyone's favorite thing, employee surveys. Do you have that data? Not every single project is going to be derived from employee feedback, but it's always worth having. And, I'm a great believer in doing I can't even think of the word, it's 10 o'clock at night. What do we call them? Listening groups. I love a listening group because that's when you get the true tone. If you're friendly and approachable, that is. If you're an asshole, no one's going to give you the feedback. But those kind of things might drive what you're doing. You might need that data. Float out some ideas, Don't just do the one at the beginning. I always try to do a couple of listening groups. This is what I'm thinking. This is what we think. What do you think about this? And they might say to me, yo, that's never going to work. Somebody's tried that. It didn't work. A bit like that's what I said earlier. But yeah, try and get in those different touch points, those different standings, and the feedback to see if you're going on the right track in your project is a good thing to do. And it's better to get that input as you go through a project so you can make adjustments throughout, as opposed to finishing the whole thing and having to backtrack through the whole thing, sifting through and adjusting those nuances. Hey, that was the word of the week this week. That's what somebody said to me and I've used it. So yeah, nuances. And the other thing to look at is external data. And you might think to yourself, well, why? So customer data, feedback, if you're going to do something that maybe impacts the efficiency or stuff like that, you need something to back it up as to why you've actually made the change. And sometimes it is because of customer feedback or suggestions. So do try and get that if it's applicable to the project you're doing. The next thing is competitor data and feedback. You'd be surprised what's out there. I see things, or I've come across things in the previous company anyway, where I had more of an awareness. For all I know, they could have it in the new one I'm at as well. But we had all the kind of competitor customer data feedback. I think it was when we did I might get this wrong, NCS promoter score. If it's minutely close, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But when you're signed in with them, you get loads of data around your competitors and stuff, and they can complete surveys which have you ranked against them as well. And there was some really useful stuff in the last company when we did that. that actually gave us a boost of confidence. So when we was rolling out the project, we was actually able to say to them, well, actually, guys, you know what? We do X, Y, and Z, and that's something that's not done anywhere else. So it kind of boosts the project, if you like. LinkedIn. Everybody loves a bit of LinkedIn, right? You see so much on there. Like, I was going to say shit, but good stuff. I mean, you see some stuff that's really not useful, but there is some good stuff on there, and it's always worth picking it up. Especially, I do follow my competitors, not because I'm trying to get a new job, but actually I just want to see what they're boasting about. So, for example, today I went on there, and my previous company, one of their competitors is looking actively for new roles, and they got this really cool poster and everything that we don't. Well, I'm not there anymore. They don't really have, and you see things like that, and it gives you a sense of idea of what different avenues are out there and things like that. So it's always worth doing something like that. And the next thing is social media. Now, where I am today, I think we're on things like TikTok and stuff. I don't even know what that is. It's annoying me when I see people moving around the screen like that. But sometimes it is about getting with the times and getting the upper hand. Somebody's doing something different. They're doing it for a reason. So in this instance, it's my own place, and I don't really understand it all. But there must be some sort of following from it or something. So always worth exploring these different avenues. They might not always be as wacky or unadventurous as you think. And the next thing I would say is look at the employee assistance program as well. Sometimes they have some really useful tools. It's quite ironic actually, because we was talking about something in the team and somebody, or no, we wasn't. Somebody sent an email about something while I was away, about something that an EAP provided. They do have some really useful stuff sometimes, and it's always worth sifting through. Again, it's a bit like the marketing stuff and the third-party support. It might be out there somewhere, but it's always worth looking at, because employee assistance programs are stuff that your employees actually do interact with a lot more than you think. And unless you request that data, you don't always get that information. So it's worth actually checking those kind of things to see what they have available. They might even have data for your own people. I think in the previous company, they actually did have data as far as to say what kind of topics and articles that people from our business were actually looking at. And that actually gives you a steer of where people are at that moment in time. So always worth checking out. I have to just let you guys know we are flying through this podcast. We haven't done many takes tonight, and we're actually on topic 5 out of 9 already. And I think I've only been recording for maybe close to half an hour, 40 minutes. So well done, guys. You're still here. If you've listened to the others, though, you must like the sound of my voice. So of course you're here. So point 5 is who else is on the project? This is a key one, right? If you're doing collaborative work, I like the word collaborative, but it never really happens. I learned this when I did one of the biggest projects that I ever did in my career, maybe 3 years ago. I can't say the exact time because that would give out who I am. But that was quite a lot of collaboration. There was a lot of different departments in the room, led by one guy who didn't really know what he was doing, led by, it was a madness. So yeah, let's break it down anyway. So first thing is to understand who else is tasked with the completion. This doesn't mean just in the HR team. You might be chucked onto a project with someone in finance or in a wider business operationally or something like that. You need to understand who else is tasked with finishing this, and you're going to have to build a good relationship with them. And it can be very hard sometimes. Like, I've wanted to punch people in the face, I'll be honest with you. But you have to build those relationships. You have to understand how to communicate with them. And I think as HR, if we're paired up with someone in the business, we definitely have to be the ones that have the right attitude and stance, which doesn't mean shouting the loudest. No, I'm joking. You do have to find a way, especially if you're the HR guy on a project. People are going to look at you as the one that is expected to set the tone, communications, how we're going to do things. And, what I found in that one project I'm referring to is people were looking at me from the legal stance as well for stuff that I didn't even have anything to do with. It wasn't sort of HR related, but yeah, it's a real focus point that you need to do, and you need to understand that and what's their main focus. What is it they want to get out of it or expecting to get out of it? Second thing is, are they like you? which 9 times out of 10 is going to be a no. But there are those rare moments where you hit the jackpot and you get someone who's quite, I was about to say I'm organized, who is like-minded like yourself. But that doesn't mean it's going to be successful for the project though, because that's a false sense of security, because that means your weaknesses aren't covered. So find out the gaps across the whole community, team, whatever you want to call it, and that way you can assign things accordingly. So the other thing I look at is if we're not alike, I try and look at if we've done some sort of insights profiling or something like that, because that's quite good. It actually tells you where people sit, how opposite or close to you they are. And yeah, look, it's not common that people are going to have it, but it's always worth asking, like, what's your colours? And just seeing where they sit. And it, I have actually formed really good relationships with people that are the complete opposite to me. And I think I've spent probably 2 projects with people who are the complete opposite of me. And actually, I've been grateful for the clear identification of the gaps that I have, because that's also part of my development too. So we touched on it briefly. What other departments are included? You need to have an overview. And I've been in projects that have, and I've got a little list here, the following. So the employee forum, are they involved? And have you thought about them? Because a lot of the times they're not really, they might be involved, but they're not brought in on the real meetings and stuff. So make sure if they're involved, they're brought onto the meetings. Finance, ye old finance. I should make a separate podcast for finance, I believe. But anyway, finance, you need to understand what their part is in this and what they've been tasked with doing. Because if you've got a CFO who's really gung-ho and heavy, this finance person is going to take a steer on your project. And I have seen finance cock block the fuck out of projects, man. Like, literally, like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, that's going to cost £2.50 more, and we haven't factored that in. We haven't signed it. Shut the fuck up, man. So just get an understanding of finance and what their angle is. You do get the rare occasions where finance are actually said, yeah, don't worry, it's all in the budget. You crack on, or, we've got a capex. Don't worry about it. Just run it up and we'll cover it off in the capex. Those are the kind of guys you want to hang out with, but that's not always the case. Sales and commercial, are they involved? What's their angle? Having a sales focus on a project can make things difficult because they just want to make the pound note and they might not believe in what they think is the fluffy stuff. So making sure that their insights are captured though, because, let's be honest, they're the ones on the ground, yeah? They're the ones actually getting it firsthand, what they're experiencing and stuff. So I actually quite enjoy listening to them. I don't tell them that, but it's always worth doing, knowing what your stakeholder community need from it. The next thing is marketing. And I think HR guys, we kind of always cross over paths. Oh, I've got a bit close to the microphone because I got palm something. We always go a bit close to the mark when it comes to communications. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of one of those guys that if I don't have to do something, I ain't going to do it. So marketing, they do comms for a living, bruv. Like, why am I telling them how to do it if they know how to do it? Comms will have templates and shit. Like, I don't understand why we don't let marketing and communications kind of do more. What are we scared of? So always worth understanding what they have, letting them share, letting them commit. We actually had one session. I remember in my previous company, we was doing stuff and totally not related to marketing, but what they did was, what my manager did was, they got marketing to actually lead the session, and it was phenomenal. It was the most productive session we ever done because they weren't worried about all the crap. They were like very much like, yo guys, this is this. They had us doing flow maps and everything on the way. It was one of the best engaging sessions I've ever done. So I love a bit of marketing, I do. And then the last one is the senior stakeholder. Now I left them last because they seem to be the ones that come in for like 10 minutes, tell you you're all rubbish, and they don't like your idea and then fuck off again. But it is worth knowing, again, what do they want from this and getting their input as much as you can. Sending them the slide deck is not going to work. Can I just put that out there? Sending them the slide deck is not going to work because they're going to read it, see a couple of colors, not read the content, not understand it fully because they weren't in the meeting, and then just call you a prick. And then everyone gets upset. Like, if you're going to do it, get the subject experts in the room, all of you sit down and present your different cases. But anyway, yeah. The next part is managing the expectation of those in the team, because you get those members of the team who are there to get their big moment or whatever, and like, yo, guys, team effort, end the game. You get your moment when the project is signed off as successful. That's when you get your moment. Let's not have our moments during it or when we're presenting the non-finished piece, because that's bullshit. No one's going to remember that anyway. And if they do, you're just going to look like a fool. So let's not focus on the glory moments until we've actually got the glory. And yo, the glory is not even when you launched it. By the way, the glory is when it's embedded and 17 months later somebody tells you or recites something that you did. That's the glory moment. So sit down and wait for that moment. The next thing is diaries. So when you have a big team, diaries are difficult. So I always try and just say, look, guys, we're meeting every second Wednesday. And that's it. And then commit to it and then done. And probably what you find is, I'm not going to say 9 times, should we say 7 times out of 10? You're all probably part of the same community meetings anyway. So you have a rough idea of when people are or aren't available. And then the last Pete is, Pete? Who's Pete, bro? The last bit is clarity on who does what. Who owns shit? Like names to tasks people and hold them accountable for it. Because if you've got your rolling appointments or whatever review stages, or you map out your actual key dates, then give them ownership. But, and this is a key thing, but secondary backup, bruv. Like, I don't know why we don't ever do that. Why do we never have secondary backup? Like, if I'm on holidays for 3 weeks and we got to do something within 4 weeks, then we know I ain't going to do it in a week. So who is going to be the sort of sidekick owner? I like that word, sidekick owner. So always make sure that there's a stand-in person for the person who owns some shit. But also, if the person owns some shit, just make sure that they know what to do and how to do it. And then make sure that there's someone able to support. Or if we need to get someone to support, let's find that person from the offset. So again, that kind of skills setting piece with your team. That is point 5. So point 6, mapping out. So first thing is ye old brainstorm. We love a bit of a brainstorm, don't we? Not me so much. I'm not that kind of guy. I'll be honest, I'm one of those people who usually have a sort of idea in my head, but I appreciate the brainstorming. So people I've worked with love a whiteboard, and I'll probably give away who I am now if any of you listening are listening to this specific bit. Can we keep it to 1 color pen, please? Like, why do we need 7? And who even has 7 color whiteboard pens? Like, I've seen yellow. Who has yellow? Why do you have yellow? It's evil. Like, anyway, so, brainstorming, making sure that it's a format that everyone can participate in. I guess the whiteboard is the most sensible thing, because nowadays you put it on a whiteboard, somebody takes a picture on a phone and shares it all around. We finally started stealing ideas from university students, eh? So brainstorming, whichever way you do it, I guess people kind of think to themselves, well, how do you do it remotely? Well, systems like Teams or whatever you might use, you just, I don't know, I just put a PowerPoint together and just start bullet pointing and stuff. There's always a means to a way, right? Next thing is timeline. Have a timeline, not concrete. You're going to have to flex it, obviously, but have a rough timeline to say that maybe every 4 weeks is scheduled catch-ups or whatever it might be, but a rough idea, because you'll have most likely a forecasted end date anyway. When you do the brainstorming, that's great, but make sure on the back of that, if there's anything that needs to be researched, it is researched. So not just a case of us saying that, you know what, this picture is really going to change the mood in the canteen. Well, how do you know that? Like, where are you getting that from if it's not something we've done before or something that we have in place? That was a pretty shit example, but we get the point. If it's some shit that's not being done already or hasn't been done in the business or nobody has an understanding of, but they've said it because it sounds great, and it is great, but just research it to find out how easy or successful it might be. The other thing is aim to complete multiple tasks at the same time. So if you've got different owners, they can do different things at the same time if they're not requiring the input of a system or someone else. Like, I don't know why we do this thing of like, we'll complete this, then we'll complete this, then we'll complete this. Like, yo, if the man can do it, let him go off and do it, bro. Like, the more pieces you got together to review from early on, and if you're doing listening groups, share with the people it impacts, then why are we not doing that? I don't know. Ensure that, I can't even read my handwriting, what's this? Ensure you factor the team's regular day job and change if required. That doesn't mean to change the person's day job. What that means is to change the tasks if it becomes untenable. So, for example, we might have a project, like I said earlier, and that's great. But if the if the day job takes over, then you might need to make some changes. Ensure that each task has an owner, but not too much on one person. So I have seen multiple times, that was really bad, you could tell I was reading that. But anyway, I've seen multiple times where, Bob is really good, so let's give Bob 17 out of the 20 tasks. And it's like, and guys, you know what, HR, we're the worst ones for it. We're like, yeah, this person can do that, yeah. And we ain't think about Bob, Let's think about his mental well-being. Imagine you get given a project, and it's your first project or something, and it's really a big chance for you to prove yourself. But actually, you've got an amazing skill set, but everyone's just decided to put everything on you. You're going to be unable to know which way to turn first, right? So I think from a well-being point of view as well, because I think project work can be difficult to fit in at times. And if you've got someone trying to do too much and they start having to do things on the weekend or whatever, that project doesn't go from something of a development opportunity, that becomes resentment. So let's think about that when we're doing it. Don't assign a task to someone without check-in support required. That kind of sounds like the last thing, but it's not, people. It's about actual development. Sometimes people might actually need training on something, or they might need coaching on something. Coming back to the point, not everyone knows everything. So just make sure you check that bit. And the whole honesty bit I said sort of right at the beginning about gaps, and I've mentioned it again previously. Find out what gaps are within the team and how you're going to eliminate those gaps. It might be that you got someone in the team that can eliminate that gap for you, but what happens if there is no one in the team that can cover that gap? Boom, boom. So just make sure you check that. And the last part is, I'm aiming this at the HR community. Well, this is a HR podcast, so obviously, but do your part, man. Like, that's the worst thing, when you get a project and, like, you don't do your bit as a HR person. If you're in a wider business project, you just make us look like a prick. Like, the department just looks incompetent. It's not a good reflection. And if you're in the HR team, we just think you're an idiot now because we've all got the same challenges, bruv. Like, you can try and style it out with, I got more discipline. No, man. We've all got shit going on. You find that time and you contribute. If we follow the steps beforehand, you find that time and you contribute. So do your bit, people. Don't take the piss. That's point 6. Don't take the piss. Do you know what? We're going to change out the podcast here. This is actually point 7, but I think it could join into point 6. So you're not going to have a little music thing. So if you've heard it the 5 times already and are pissed off with it, you get one saving grace for free. So the next bit is making sure everyone inputs, which I've put as point 7. So if you think it's a several point, cool. So the first thing is allow everyone to participate in the project. So this is kind of the extreme opposite of what I said previously. You get the guys who take everything and run with everything and don't allow the other person to actually contribute anything. And that can be really demoralizing if you're in a project. Going back to the guy who's just got his big break, you would feel so undervalued if you weren't even given the opportunity to speak or to even do anything that you deem significant. Or the worst thing is, I've seen projects where you've got subject experts there, but the HR person's decided they're the subject expert, and then the guy from commercials just sitting there. And especially if someone's new into the business or whatever, it's not a great first impression of the business, is it? So Guys, allow everyone to take part. It's all about taking part. That's what they say when we're a kid. And if you don't allow them to take part, well, then you're a fucking idiot. Next thing is when we're doing these team meetings, whether that's now over some sort of internet web based application or in a forum environment together, don't over talk, man. I think that shit's childish. Like, we should be able to take a step back, allow the person the opportunity to speak, allow the person the opportunity to express themselves, and then give feedback if we think there's something wrong. Don't talk over the person. Don't shout, man. Don't challenge the person. And the other thing is, don't make the person look like a prick up in front of everyone. Like, even if they get it wrong, that's not how you build a project team. So yeah, just factor that in is a nice thing. It's a nice thing. Listen to all, not just senior employees. That kind of touches on. Oh, I've dropped this thing again, man. Right, there it is. So I'm fiddling actually. I'm actually fiddling with a tangerine and what appears to be like the top of it. But anyway, so don't just listen to the senior employees, because do you know what? They don't always know what they're talking about. Even if they say they've done something somewhere else, someone else did it for them unless they were a level down. So you don't have to just listen to what they say, and you don't have to just do what they say. You are able to present something differently. You are able to come back with, well, actually, this is what we're thinking. And if you can articulate your challenge back in the right manner, whether that's through a presentation back to say blam, or to just actually word it, verbalize it in the actual process of the meeting, then do so. And if they shoot you down for that, then they can fuck off, because that's not what this is about. The project should be trying to get the main objective over the line. So yeah, I think that's important. I think I've articulated that the right way about not just listening. Like, basically, don't just suck up to the senior person. Whoever's the highest person in the group, like, you don't have to suck up to them. You don't have to. It's about getting, the common goal is to get the objective complete. And you've been put on that because you have a skill set or a mindset that can help get that project over the line. So that means your word, or the next person next to you who's from finance, commercial, marketing, whatever, everyone's opinion is just as relevant. Ensure everyone has a meaningful task. I think I've kind of covered that, but yeah, again, just to focus on it, just to make it its own standalone point, make sure people are not doing things that are deemed menial or belittling. I've been in projects where people have been like, yo, can you type this out? Like, what? That's my contribution, typing out this Word document. Yeah. When I got all these other skill sets, that's literally what you want me to do. Note taker, yeah. So I that's happened. That has happened actually, and I don't know why. But anyway, that just made me think to them like, oh, what are you trying to gain from making me a note taker, bro? Like, everyone can take notes. Like, fine, yeah, take notes, but you just want me to type up some shit. You just want me to actually type up some boxes, and that's my part in the whole project, not the actual development opportunity, talent management bit that I do. So, meaningful tasks. Next thing is, don't set people up to fail. Yeah, I think we do that sometimes, Not me, but I do see, I've sat there where I've watched people, and it might even be the business areas doing it, it's not always HR, but I've rather seen people just like be set out to fail, like they can't even see it, and I'm like, yo, somebody needs to reach out to that man and tell him not to do that. Don't do that. Like, yeah, I don't understand why we do these things. It's a project. It's not about standing someone up. I've actually seen it. Not a project I was on, not at my current employer, at my previous employer, where people were given projects knowing they couldn't do it. Like, the manager's giving it to them knowing they can't do it. Like, why are you doing that, bro? That's dickhead movements. I'm sorry. That's just, yeah. Don't do things like that, man. And if you do, don't listen to the podcast anymore. Unsubscribe. I don't like that shit. Anyway, no one subscribes anyway, so don't worry. That's an empty threat. And the last bit is celebrate success as a team. Team success. I'll be honest, I'm one of those people. Whatever I do, I always go back to the team. That might be from the football and education I had growing up, but it's all about the team. It's not I. Like, you just look like a fucking idiot. Like, how many times I've sat there and I've watched a project team, so one that I'm not even part of, and a person standing up there, and I did this, and I did that, and I did this, and I did that, and the other four people are looking at her like, no, she fucking didn't. And it just shows anyway, like, just don't do it. Celebrate success as a team. And as I said already, anyway, you shouldn't be celebrating any sort of success until it's deemed successful, which is not straight after the fact. Oh, I hit the microphone. Okay, so anyway, celebrate success as a team when relevant. That is point 7. I think that is different from point 6. You guys missed out on a free music opportunity. So here we go into point 8. So the last thing I said, where I got a bit animated, kind of takes us into the next point 8 quite well, which is project updates. So just to kind of whiz through, I'm not going to strenuate too long on it. So the first thing is, as and when required, the update should be in terms of those who need to review or will ask, where are you with this? The external beneficiary? I don't even know. But basically, the person who asks you to do it, they're going to want updates. Yeah, that's the easiest way. So, as and when required. Yeah, don't be like giving weekly updates and shit, because there's going to be times where you have moments of absolutely nothing, and then you just look like a dick when you're going up there like, yeah, nothing's really moved from this. And the other thing I would say is be honest. Like, if you ain't got nothing to update, why are you wasting everyone's time for? Just go back and say, you know what, this month we ain't got nothing to give. But obviously this is what we're focusing on, because I think I've referenced it quite a few times now. Maybe I am not over this, but I remember when one of my projects got stolen, and I saw the same thing for 6 months, and it was worse because I did that, and literally the same thing. Like, if I was them, I'd have just been like, yo, no further updates. I wouldn't have made myself present something that I stole. I think it must have been 3 times I had to sit through it. And like, there was one point where what they did was they moved it off PowerPoint into an Excel table, which was the most they'd done on the project. So, there might be someone like that who's sitting in the room just thinking you're an idiot. So, look, only update when necessary. That was actually the next point as well. I've also put as well, though, so before what I said, is have prepared updates anyway. Now, you might sound that sounds like I'm counteracting, but basically what that means is, even if there is no update, have that slide deck ready and rolling. So what I would do is have the slide deck ready, but just change the month on the front and then add anything to it. Or if there's no further changes, the opening line would be, there's no further changes, you can send it, because there might be somebody hasn't got the visuals anymore or whatever, so you can still send it, but it just might be that you don't do a call with 17 people on it and wasting everyone's time for 25 minutes. Next one I have to read this one. Ensure any presentations have the actual relevant person present to answer questions and offer feedback. That sounds really good. So what that means is, and I've seen this, I think I've even done it before actually, to be fair, where unless the person's on holiday, look, if the person's on holiday, they're on holiday, obviously they can't be there. But if the person's in the business and they're the subject expert for that slide, as an example, then have them in the room, man. Because as soon as you get asked a question, you're going to be like, do you know what? I need to ask Bob. And it's like, so what? You've been on this project, you don't even know what Bob's talking about, bro. Yeah. But the thing is, your subject expert is going to be able to actually take the more tricky questions as well around whatever the piece is. And the other thing is, they can actually give insight into concerns that they might have and opportunities. So if you've got a marketing person, I like marketing, if you've got a marketing person and they're able to tell you some of the risks publicly or something like that, that's why you want them in there, yeah? You go in there and saying that, oh, well, this is perceived as a risk. As soon as somebody says, why is it a risk? What are you going to say? You're going to say anything. So have the subject expert in the room able to answer these questions. And I've put here, keep a rolling log via version numbers. So, I've got this habit of draft 01, 02, whatever. You can see that with even in the episode names. So keeping the drafts there is quite important. And I always keep notes in the presentation on PowerPoint at the bottom, because if I have to change something, I'll actually reference who suggested that and when. And that way, it's quite a good tool to have. Not that it happens often, but if someone turns around and says, "Oh, I really like that. Why did you move it?" Well, Julia, on the 17th of June, you said it was a load of shit. So that's why we moved it. And you can actually show them that was version 2 of the plan. And that's why it no longer exists in version 6. So I think that's quite handy to have. So now on to the last point. We're nearly at the end. So we're going to kind of whiz through this bit because I kind of feel like now that I'm reading it, maybe I'll cover this in a different podcast. So let's see how we go. So this is point 9, pilot and rollout. So the first thing is agree when and how this pilot will happen. This is quite key, and you also need to identify who's going to be a part of that pilot and mix it up. Yeah, don't just get the intelligent people or am I allowed to say that as HR? I don't know, but anyway, don't get your favorites, which will be based on intelligent levels. Don't get those guys solely. Get a mixture. You want the people who are not going to understand it the first time. You're going to want the difficult people that are going to say this has already happened before. You're going to want the people who are going to ask questions about every single minute thing. Have a mixture of people that you pilot this with. Identify who from the project team needs to support, and that's quite key because HR, we love to say, is just us, but you might need someone else with you. Like you might need the IT guy to go to a location. I'm still fucking about with this orange. You might need the IT person there, or you might need the finance guy to explain, say for example you're doing a new pricing model, they might need to explain it. So just identify who needs to be there and make sure they're around. If they're on holiday, that's pretty piss poor planning in your mapping session. So make sure that that is done as a team collectively, and people understand that they have to be available for those periods of times. Agree what area of the business you want to roll it out to. So you're going to have different business areas. If you've got something that's business wide, you need to identify which areas you're going to target first and why. So I'll be honest, I actually liked to attack a bigger area first in terms of a pilot to get more of a range of people, but you might choose to do it on a smaller scale as well. That is probably more logical, safer, logical. I don't know. I've not really had any unsuccess with going on the bigger community, but yeah, that's my personal preference. Bigger community, more feedback, more scope, but totally respect if you go smaller. With a pilot, when you start doing it, make sure the feedback is captured. So you might do it through a survey online, you might do it through documents that people fill out, whatever way you do it, make sure it's captured. But when you capture it, make sure you actually incorporate it into your project, because if you've been doing your versions, and let's say the first pilot had happened in version 7 of the plan, then that's a great way for you to incorporate that feedback into version 8. Does that make sense? You all got the bit from section 8. So have that rolling as well, the feedback in there, and then you can actually demonstrate that you've changed it. Because say for example, you did do something on the I'm still messing about. Someone did give feedback that you did change, and then actually they all collectively say, "Oh, that's a load of shit." But actually, guys, you told us to do that shit in version 7. See how it's working now with different draft numbers? Always worth having. It's my tip of the day. When presenting, ensure feedback is referenced and changes something I've written. I think that's pretty much what I just said, though. Look at that. That's how free-flowing this podcast is. But yeah, having that part of the presentation. So I used to put actual quotations of the feedback if it was like written verbally or said to us, and then that way people can see why you did it. And you have to agree what percentage of feedback is going to drive change in terms of the project. So it doesn't mean that every bit of feedback you're going to change. No, there has to be a sensible look on it. That's why you want to scope. If you've got collectively across your different range of people, so you might have 30 people in a room, 4 different types of opinions. If the majority are saying something, then you're probably going to want to change something. But actually, if it's just the moany fuckers that are saying it, then I don't know. Unless they're all saying it and they can all articulate it, I don't know if I'm going to change it so much. I mean, it depends what it is, right? You might still change it. They might have a different viewpoint that the friendlier faces, are we going with? Whatever, the people you like might say. So it's worth doing. Make sure that all comms are agreed by all in the team prior to rollout. All members of the team prior to rollout. I've been in projects where the comms have gone out and I didn't even know. I don't know. And I'm getting asked questions about stuff and I don't know what timeline they put because I ain't been involved in it. I ain't even get the email. Like, company-wide email, I don't even get it anyway. So, bruv, I don't know. So it's very important, and I think the comms piece has to be sense checked by every subject expert because you need to make sure that their version of whatever it is. So if finance say something, they need to be comfortable with what they're saying. They don't need it to be HR'd. Yeah, this is one of those moments where it doesn't need to be HR'd. It needs to be in the language that's right for the reader and also right for the subject expert. So take a step back. HR people. I've been a bit lenient with HR today, to be fair, in comparison to the other podcasts. So anyway, the last point is make sure there are Q&As with subject experts involved in this project plan. And when I say Q&As, it's not just the pilot people, it's when you've actually rolled it out. So, if it's company-wide, depending on how vast your region is, you're going to want to have people who are part of the project maybe going into local sites to kind of just ensure and collect feedback. Or you might have it, if it's tailored at managers, there might be a regional or area managers meeting and you just have a subject expert there that can actually do a Q&A for about 30 minutes on the topic. So always worth having, because remember, you don't celebrate success until somebody mentions it 17 months later. So launching something, yes, is a good milestone. Yes, it's a lot of work that goes into it. But the Q&As definitely help identify whether or not this thing has landed correctly or not. And the last one is, which sounds like common sense, but believe me, it's not, is making sure that all your subject experts are available during rollout to support. So, for example, if you're going to aim to have this project completed by the summer, your probably best bet is to launch it in September because every kid is on school holidays between July and August. And if you've got people within your team that are subject experts who have kids, you might find that 3 of them are not available the week you want to go live. That probably should be covered in section 6, I think, which is mapping. But just make sure they're around. Like, it's not fun when IT is not around because he's chilling in Barbados and therefore the whole system has crashed, or the thing needs to have an access restriction unlocked for the company and nobody can do it, so you're having to go third party and they won't do it and they're telling you that they can't access it because your subject expert has the password. This kind of shit really does happen. Not that I've seen it before. So just make sure that they're all available. And you know what? The other thing is I've seen is somebody got suspended, bro. Like, we were about to roll out some shit and someone got suspended. Like, who's going to cover? That's why you have the backup person, see? So it's all relevant. Everything I'm saying is relevant. So just making sure that everyone is available. So that brings us to the end of episode 6. That has flown by. We've actually pretty much done this in one take, which is a monumental feat for me. I filmed these in the evening. I don't even think I've said too much. I've been quite conscious this time, so we'll find out during editing, because I do take away about 20% of them. There's so many attached to words that I don't take them all out. But just to kind of touch on where we're at with the podcast, so we have mapped out episode 6 till 10, which will conclude season 1. I have been thinking about season 2 and what I want to do, or do I want to start doing sort of weekly updates, topical subject things, so not quite decided yet. Currently sitting at 175 listens at the moment. Now, the piece I've realized is that that might actually not be accurate. It might be more than that because I'm actually using a free site. So the podcast might grow onto a different provider. The other thing we've been thinking about is a potential website. So branching this thing out. So there are different things floating around. I did take a bit of a break, mainly because I was watching Narcos and I was off and I was drinking quite a bit of beer. So the breaks happened. I did also hit a bit of a block. So episodes 6 to 10 wasn't written until the other day. Like literally the 15th, I wrote them all out. I didn't really know how I wanted to conclude season 1. I'd only mapped out 5 episodes. I didn't think I would enjoy this as much. So yeah, that's where we kind of sit with the podcast at the moment. So if you are one of the 175, or when this is released, hopefully 200, thank you for listening. Thanks for participating. I have been getting a bit of feedback. It would be really cool, though, to get some of the sort of constructive negative feedback. I'd like to know if there's anything we need to do differently to improve this, how we can make it better. And look, I'm at the point now, it'd be really cool if people can share this. You know, some of the feedback I've had is that this has been quite helpful, and this was always designed to be that, nothing else at the moment. So if you can, please share the podcast, share the link. It's available on most platforms, and it would really help get the numbers up and hopefully get some more feedback that we can incorporate to make this a better show. So thank you for listening. This has been episode 6. Stay safe.